So, good afternoon, family. As we gather today for our 54th family reunion, I want to welcome everybody, those who live nearby and those who've traveled many miles to be here. It's no small thing to make the journey, and your presence reminds us that the family isn't just made of names, it's made of commitment, connection, and love. You hear me? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so every year we meet here on the second Saturday of July, sharing food, laughter, history, these trees, and not just in number, but in legacy. Our story began with Peter and Mary Gurto, and today that love story has blossomed into a tree with nearly 400 names. That's not just a family, that's a legacy, a living, breathing, and still growing. We welcome 5 new branches on our tree, and we can begin by celebrating the new life that was added to the Gurto family this year. We have Tatum Morgan, who was born September 9th, 2024. Archer Joseph Gurto, January 27th, 2025. Laura Michael Georgie, April 21st, 2025. Cole John Casimir, April 27th, 2025. And Lily Rose Raisin, May 14th, 2025. To the proud parents and grandparents, we extend our heartfelt congratulations. Whether or not your little ones are here with us today, please know, yes, of course. Please know how much they mean to the family. Their arrival reminds us that our story is still being written, that our roots are strong, and our branches keep growing. And to each of the babies, you're part of something special, the Gurto family and the Gurto story. So may the chapter that you add to our story be long, rich, and unforgettable. Welcome to the family. This year's been heavy for us. The generation that we know as the juniors, Peter and Mary's grandchildren, have been the living bridge to our roots for many, many, many years. The first of the Sharon was born in 1943. Then, in 1968, my youngest brother Vincent tragically drowned in Lake Erie at just 5 years old. It was a sorrow that we'd never forgot and didn't want to repeat. The last of the juniors, my brother Nick, was born in 1976. So for more than half a century, we've been spared the loss of any more juniors until Frank Gurto Jr. passed away in 2020. And then, more than 80 years after she was born, we lost Sharon in December 2023. But since our last reunion, within 10 months, we've said goodbye to 4 more students. Johnny Lewis, July of 2024. Stevie Moneypenny, January of 2025. Debbie Pierce in February 2025. And Tammy Moneypenny in May 2025. A generation that we thought might go on forever is now slowly, achingly fading from the circle. Each of them deserves to be remembered. Not just as names, but as lives lived. At this point, I'd like to pause and invite people to my dad, my brother Michael, who was 2, and Tony, who was 5 months old, and I moved into residence in Gurto House, our residence in Grandpa Gurto's house. We joined Grandpa and Grandma, Uncle Pat, Effie, Bill, and Johnny, who also lived there. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 11 of us. But I guess that was normal in that house as Grandma and Grandpa raised their 10 children there. So Johnny was around. And as one of the older cousins on the block, he always seemed to assert his authority and boss us little cousins around. But we could depend on him for protection if it was ever needed. Like the time Jack Carr threw a water balloon at me and Jackie Moneypenny. We told Johnny and he sorted it out with Jack Carr by making his the water balloon over his own head. He just simply said, "Do you want to do it, or should I?" And Johnny was very big. Jack Carr was bigger than us. Johnny was bigger than him. So Jack Carr just took the balloon, bashed it out of his head. It was all done. And I remember when he and Johnny and Jimmy were in Vietnam, we used to write letters to them and send them packages of food. So I'm going to ask Jimmy to say a few words about Johnny because he was the closest in age to him in the neighborhood. There he is.
Yep. Well, seeing it's so hot, this is going to be short and sweet. Hard to believe. Next week, Saturday, will be 1 year since we got the phone call that he passed away. Anyone who ever talked to him heard all his kids plug your ears BS stories, and he had a ton of them. I'm going to tell you two that I know happened because they involved me. He took me to Ashtabula to get a rent-a-car. He took out his wallet and he had a Dallas Cowboy card. Of course, that was his team along with Alabama. The guy looked at him and said, "Did you play with Dallas?" Johnny never missed a beat. Yep, till I tore up my knee. Another time I used to call him when he was driving bus. I said, "What are you doing?" "I need my hand for this one." I'm driving the bus. I'm eating a sandwich. I'm drinking a cup of coffee. I'm talking to you on the phone. And I went, "You only got two hands." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm driving the bus 80 miles an hour, no problem." I went, "I'm glad you're the only professional driver we have in the family." Yeah. I used to call him 2 or 3 times a week just to BS with him. And that's about it. Everybody I know misses him.
Sure. I did ask Pam, John's wife, to give us a little message to say here, and she sent a little message. She said that Johnny did many jobs throughout his life. Driving his buses with his dad had to be his favorite. They did many trips together. John continues driving after Bill passed, and the stories he could tell. Our favorite was a time he took a group of kids to West Virginia skiing. They all went into a restaurant to eat dinner, and one of the kids said, "John, look." And he turned around, and there was his bus sliding across the parking lot. He didn't realize he'd parked on a sheet of ice. He also loved his Dallas Cowboys. We made a trip to Dallas a few years ago and toured both the stadium and their training camp. What a great trip. He loved his family, including our Yorkies. He probably wore a shirt Emily bought him that said, "Stay at home Yorkie Dad." He wasn't wearing that. He was usually wearing one of his many Marine Corps shirts. Even though his time was short there, due to getting injured, he was very proud to have served his country. At the time of this reading, he'll have been gone for almost a year. He's missed beyond words, but we know he's in a better place and that he's up there having a family reunion with all of his family that's passed too. What a party I'm sure that is. Emily and I send our love to all. Okay, so Stevie Moneypenny and I were closest in age, 10 weeks apart. He always bragged about being the older of us and usually took charge of whatever we did together, such as stealing food from Grandpa Gurto's garden, running across Uncle Pat's roof and jumping off when Grandpa Gurto chased us. We dug a fort in the fish field, covered it with sheets, tin sheets and rugs that we found in the rubbish dump down by the gully near the creek. We attended school together. He was always popular, and I always tried to bask in his shadow. Joyce, you were going to say something about Stevie?
January 5th, just shy of his 70th birthday, 2 months. He had a stroke in 2018 that paralyzed his left side. But that wasn't the end of the struggle because he ended up getting lung cancer. He had a massive heart attack. And when he ended up with the lung cancer, he was transferred to Cleveland. And during COVID, that was like around 2020. And I was fortunate enough and privileged that he was able to stay in the Cleveland area with us. He's stayed in a nursing home because his physical therapy did not advance his mobility very much, and it went even further downhill after his cancer treatments. So he became bedridden, and they could only move him out of bed with a lift called a wire lift, which caused him a lot of pain to be moved, and he didn't want to be moved, so he basically became bedridden. He never lost hope that he was going to get his weight. He never lost hope that he was going to be able to go back to Congress. He never lost hope that he wasn't going to be part of our family for a long time. When I talked to him after surgery about what he needed for his condition, he said, I want to be married with my son. Now, Stevie Jr. died in 1996. He was 7 weeks old. And he was buried on my mom and dad's grave. So Stevie was going to be cremated, and his ash was also interred on their site. So he will be with his son. And actually, what we are going to do is not a script. Anyone that wants to be welcome to go there with us. We had his service at the funeral home, and I do want to thank Joe and Dana for doing such a wonderful job for us with him and Pam. But after today's reunion, we'll go there and we'll complete his final wishes. Stevie, if you could talk to any one of my sisters, they will tell you, especially Brenda, that if I was the last person on earth, I would not be taking care of her, she said. And that's because I gave it to Stevie as good as he gave it out. And she said, where's the compassion? And I said, I'm just making him stronger. You know, I want him to stay alert. I'm not going to give in to every one of his whims. He was going to go on out west. He asked Brenda to buy the boots. He was going to go to Ireland. He asked her to give him leather, pants, a jacket, so he could ride a motorcycle. Oh. And I said, what are you talking about? And because we had a Zoom meeting set up with him every week. And Brenda said, oh my God, why didn't you just let him talk? I said, because he thinks he is going to go on a motorcycle. I would go visit him and he'd say, did Brenda get my stuff? So he never let go of those ideas until I kind of brought him back down to her. When Stevie passed, Brenda and Faye and John and Tim and I were in Florida just a few days before he passed. We got the call. We got back on a Wednesday night, and he passed away on Thursday. He had family with him when he passed away, and we miss him terribly. And we're still reeling with that, and we lost him. So it came on. Yes, Brenda.
Okay, Brenda, you going to say something?
I
About Pamela? Give me 1 second. Okay, I want to just mention quickly also Debbie Pierce. When Uncle Frank married Joyce, we suddenly got 3 extra cousins all at once. And we really didn't see that much of them except for family occasions and for some of us at school. Debbie was always a bit shy and self-conscious, and she joined the military straight out of high school and stayed for many years. I think she made a career of it. She then moved to Virginia and would return to Conneaut occasionally to visit her mother, but she rarely saw many of us. She attended the, I think, 99 reunion at David's place, and she was my friend on Facebook, where I learned that she loved her birds. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find out much more about her, so I saw just a simple Facebook post by one of her friends stating that she had passed away. So I don't know any more than that, but as a temporary cousin, wanted to remember her as well. And then we have Pamela. And Pamela was the baby cousin in the neighborhood until Mark was born. But I think that everyone continued to see her that way somehow. Pamela, like the rest of us, had to be loud to be heard, especially being the youngest of 7 children and of 32 grandchildren. But she definitely made an impact and made her presence known in our noisy neighborhood. And I think, Brenda, are you going to talk, or Faye, you're going to talk about Pam? Okay.
So, yeah, my late 14. We lost Pam on May 14th, 3 weeks. Surprise and a shock. Nobody had expected Pam to slip away. So we were fortunate to have her at our house 3 days before this. And, we actually had a full release for my son Johnny, which we do every year on his birthday, which he actually passed on. A few days earlier, we had it this year, and Pam was there. She was able to hold my new and only grandchild right now. So I am very blessed that Pam was able to see Cole when he was just a few weeks old. So Pam and I were very close growing up. We fought a lot when she was younger. She was the baby of the family, so all she had to say is, "Mom." My mom would yell, "Hey, leave them alone." And so then I said, "Now I'm really going to give you something to cry about." So we had this type of love-hate relationship when we were kids. When we grew up, we had an unbreakable bond. We traveled. Our kids were all the same age. We traveled together. We took vacations together. I've been a Mary Kay for years and years. Pam joined us with me, my Mary Kay journey. We talked for hours and hours and hours on cell phone before we had unlimited calling. So back then, I had hundreds and hundreds of dollars of cell phone bills. That's the same thing, but we talked every night for a couple hours. She was one of my best friends, and it was a very, very hard to start in her life. In her 30s, she was diagnosed with MS, and she was fighting that. She also had rheumatoid arthritis. She was dealing with all of this. She had many other illnesses before it led to her actually losing her leg. She went through 14 knee surgeries in 10 years trying to recover from it. A surgery or infection in her knee years after her knee replacement. She had both knees replaced. She had shoulders replaced, surgeries on her hands, and she never, ever, ever complained. How you doing, Pam? Great. How's everything going? Why complain? Who cares? And you would know, not to know, talking to Pam, that she had any issue at all. She always had a smile on her face, and if there's one word that I could sum up my baby sister, it's that she was a giver. Anything in Pam's life, she would give if you had asked. When Jesse was going through trials and tribulations, trying to recover, he said, "Well, I know I'm not a perfect counselor. You can have my kidney. I have 2 of them. And anytime someone needed something, well, I can help you. Do you need me to come up and do this?" Even when I had been ill or went to his home, she wanted to come up and sit by him in the hospital. Come up and sit with me at home to take care of him. So even though Pam had illness, no one ever knew, and she never showed it. So in my mind, Pam was 100% complete. And I hope the rest of the world will figure that out because she was such a giver and lover. Her biggest accomplishment, I don't know, but her greatest sense of pride was with her family. She loved Bill dearly and loved listening to him play his music and singing to her. Maybe she didn't really say that, but I know she loved him singing. I really love that. So, and then with her kids, there's not anything she would not have done for her as all of us. But they were her pride and joy, and they still are. So I know from experience of losing people that are close to us, they're always with us. She's here now, Stevie's here now, my son Johnny's here now, and so's Grandma and Grandpa, and all of our parents who are on the other side. So don't ever think they're not with you. Please talk to them. They hear you. We just don't hear the conversation in the voice that they speak, but they're there and they hear us. And please leave them to him. And I'm sorry I took so long. Thank you.
Thanks, Faye. So each of the names that we've just spoken about represents a short story that shaped our family. Okay, faith that can never be quite told again. We also, our families, we mark not only time, not just with dates, but with moments. And I think there's some moments that need to be remembered today, some family milestones. So 100 years ago today, 1925, Johnny Moneypenny was born. 90 years ago, 1935, my dad, Joe Sr., was born. 75 years ago, 1950, Mary Gurto married John Moneypenny. 70 years ago, 55, Stevie Moneypenny was born, and so was I. 50 years ago, 1975, when the Vietnam War ended, Nancy Gurto married Bob Burford. Matt Snyder was born, Kimmy Hackett was born, Pam Waldock was born. 40 years ago, 1985, Tony Gurto Jr. was born and Jeff Evans was born. 30 years ago, 1995, Rachel Miller, Jesse Cosmer, Ricky Dean were all born. Happy birthday, Rachel. And Rosie Spear passed away. 20 years ago, 2005, Kimberly Rose Teniuka was born and Emily Rose Lockwood was born. 10 years ago, 2015, Paisley Gurto was born, Landon Allen was born, Dylan Evans, Zane Schneider, Milo Gates, Finley Gates, they were all born. And Kyle Clancy married Lindsay. 5 years ago, 2020, when we were all paused for the pandemic, Gino Armini was born, Zane Zimney, Peyton Morgan, and Carl Clancy married Alexis, and Frank Gurto Jr. died, and Pat Gurto died. Carl, sorry, yes, I have written Carl, I just said the wrong name. Carl married Alexis. Thank you, Sherry. So these milestones aren't just dates, they're memories and reminders of our story, and we mention them to celebrate who we are and how far we've come. About a month ago, I put some challenges on Facebook to just get people sort of in the mood for the family reunion, maybe just do a little bit of thinking about the family and memories of things that have gone by. And I want to congratulate, the winner was Brenda. She had about 95 challenges that she did. Thanks for participating in that. And I also would like to just give this little gift to Jill. Where's Jill? Oh, there you are. Just for everything you do in organizing things. Okay, so we can all join hands for a blessing for the meal, and then we'll so. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, for this meal, and for the hearts that are gathered here. We thank you for the newest among us, the babies whose eyes have yet to see all the beauty around them. We thank you for the lives that have ended but not vanished, for the stories, love, and legacies they leave in our hands. We thank you for those family members who couldn't be here today, but are surely thinking of us and celebrating in their own way. We thank you for the food before us, and the hands that prepared it, and the stories shared across these tables. And we ask for your blessing as we continue the journey forward, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and embracing our future. Amen.
Amen.
So let's eat, let's laugh, let's remember, let's keep showing up. Let's do as we always have.
I have a question. What happened 35 years ago?
35 years ago, that wasn't one of the things, but
Okay.
Jeremy was born 35 years ago. Next week. Happy birthday, Jeremy.
Thanks.